Coming to you live from Harrison University, it's the 10 Point Podcast. My name is Bruce. A good podcast is hard to find. Sometimes you think you have a good podcast, and then you catch the early flight home from San Diego, and a couple of nude people jump out of your bathroom blindfolded like a goddamn magic show, ready to double team your girlfriend. What I'm trying to say is, with me on the 10 Point Palooza this week, you're my boy, Chris. You're my boy.
When it touches your lips, it just tastes so good.
And secondly, you're crazy, man. You're crazy. I like you, but you're crazy. It's Andy.
I'll take that one. There's more insults in there.
Yes, I didn't insult anybody this week. I thought you were my boys, so I couldn't do that to you. We are the 10 Point Podcast. We do film reviews. We are the 10 Point Podcast on all your podcast apps. Every single thing that you get podcasts on, search 10 Point Podcast, and you will find us. That's 10 TEN, not the number 10. We are on YouTube where you can get video versions on our 10 Point broadcast. Search 10 Point Podcast over there as well. Also available on Spotify in video and audio form. Hit us up, Facebook and Twitter. We want to hear from you. Send us money, send us messages, send us requests, send us reviews, send us everything you want to do over on the Twitter and on the Facebook. I want to hear from you.
I could have it on your laptop.
And there, yeah.
Yeah. Chris just literally said before the podcast started that he didn't think we'd get 5 seasons. It's the same laptop, and our video quality is slowly getting worse.
We're being dated by technology.
It's not a high def. I'm slowly getting like grey, like what's it, sepia?
Yeah. Yeah, we'll look back.
He's from the Old West.
Yeah. Back to the Future again. So 10pointpodcast.com, just search 10 Point Podcast on the internet and you'll find us talking about movies one way or another. On to the reason that we are the 10 Point Podcast, which is our 10 points of discussion. Point number 1 on the 10 Point Podcast is, what is the point? The point this week, the 2003 comedy Old School. Nothing too flashy there. Normally I've got a whole long list of every criteria that it hits. Brought to us by DreamWorks again. They did Evolution last week. And something else. I think it was Catch Me If You Can, because we forgot, or they didn't show up. Also brought to us by the Montecito Picture Company again. They did Evolution last week. Somehow, the absolute same production offices have made the last 2 films back to back. And
the wheel.
Yeah, the wheel of randomness, or the wheel of random Sean picked it for us. So there was no pre-planning at all in this. The film, Old School, written by Court Crandall. It was his first script he ever did. He made some very minor things afterwards, but basically this is what his career was writing this. Co-written by Scott Armstrong, and he's a more prominent writer. You may recognise some of these. They're going to come up in a second. Wrote things such as Road Trip before making Old School, then Starsky and Hutch, The Heartbreak Kid, Semi-Pro, and The Hangover Part 2 specifically. Co-wrote and directed by Todd Phillips. He wrote and directed Road Trip, Old School, Starsky and Hutch. Apparently he was an uncredited writer on the Borat movie, or maybe even a credited writer on the first Borat movie. He also wrote and directed Due Date, the Hangover films 1 through 3, the film War Dogs, and then Joker, and is probably currently writing the next Joker film, because he is also writing and directing that. That's Todd Phillips. He's a very popular director these days, but that's pretty much his films in a nutshell there. He made some comedy films in the 90s. They made it big with The Hangover, and then there's Joker since then, and really that's kind of made his career. Old School, starring our 3 main stars for this one. As Mitch, we have Luke Wilson, famous for being in Bottle Rockets, Legally Blonde, The Royal Tenenbaums before being in Old School. Since then, the highlights I could find, My Super Ex-Girlfriend, Idiocracy, and Vacancy. Luke Wilson has a strange career, really. He's kind of been Luke Wilson for most of it. It's weird. Both in the characters that he plays, he just plays basically the same guy. And then he's like a kind of joke person to play himself in things, in like many TV shows and movies. But Luke Wilson, this was basically his biggest starring leading role in something I can really think of, because things like Royal Tenenbaums, it's very much a kind of group effort, and he wasn't the main star of. Anyway, co-starring as Frank the Tank if you prefer, Will Ferrell. This is a big, proper, significant film in Will Ferrell's career. So before he was in Old School, Saturday Night Live, of course, and then he was famous but minor characters in things like Austin Powers, Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. Then he was the villain in Zoolander. He was Mugatu in Zoolander. Then Old School comes along. His second build in Old School. Old School does pretty well for itself. And then afterwards, Elf, Anchorman, Talladega Nights, Blades of Glory, Semi-Pro, Step Brothers, the other guys, and then slight deviation into doing Megamind, Lego movies. And most recently, my favorite Will Ferrell role in recent years, Eurovision, which was a return to the Will Ferrell template.
It's hard to say. He absolutely loves that film. It's crap.
It has no right to being as good as it was.
And they're basically getting Eurovision, like, they've nailed that, because it looks like it's going to be held in Glasgow.
Glasgow, yeah. Exactly. So yeah, Will Ferrell, before this, was your side funny guy. After this was your main star. This is the one where they kind of took a chance on him being, like, one of the main characters. And thirdly, as Bernard, but more commonly referred to as Beanie throughout the film, something that had not stuck with me, Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn, famous for being in Swingers, being in The Lost World, Jurassic Park, co-starred Julianne Moore was in last week's movie, so had that back-to-back. Then Old School. Since then, Starsky and Hutch, Dodgeball, which to me is the Vince Vaughn role, is Dodgeball. Wedding Crashers, The Breakup, Couples Retreat. He was in a season of True Detective, and then apparently one of his most famous things is Brawl in Cell Block 99, which I've absolutely never heard of. So,
that's a good film.
There you go. So apparently it's one of his known fors. And recently, Fighting with My Family, the wrestling movie that seems to be well reviewed that I've never seen. There are three main stars. They all came before the title card came up.
I've never seen a wrestling film.
I know. It's exactly my cup of tea as well. It's exactly every aspect of it is something I should have seen. But anyway, we might get that on the podcast at some point. Old School. Made on a budget of $24 million, opened in the US, first weekend, $17.5 million, final US gross, $75.5 million, trebled its money in home soil. Worldwide, got up to $87 million takings at the cinema. A lot of money. Back in the days where you could release a comedy in the cinema and it would sell a whole bunch of tickets. Big difference to what we get nowadays. Although saying that, it was a rom-com on top of the charts on the news podcast this week. Released 21st of February 2003 in America, came to the UK on the 9th of May 2003, a big gap in between there. Made it eligible for the 2003 awards season at the so-called major award ceremonies in 2003. It got 2 nominations at the MTV Movie Awards of 2003. Nominations were Best On-Screen Team. That was Wilson, Ferrell and Vaughn, our 3 main stars. They did not win. They lost to the team of Elijah Wood and Sean Astin in Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers.
That's a banging team, that.
Quite a match of teams there. And the second nomination, Best Comedic Performance, Will Ferrell. He lost to Mike Myers in Goldmember. I'm assuming because he played 3 main characters in Goldmember. So quite hard to challenge that one. That's it for the major awards. The Oscars did not acknowledge it, neither did Golden Globes or anything else. And the 2003 Saturn Awards, Old School, received 0 nominations because comedies generally don't fit in with the Saturn Awards. It's the one thing that the Saturn Awards let us down on. Did not get any comedy nominations for Old School. Synopsis of the film Old School, written by Matt, a new contributor. And I've never read this one, and it's literally the only one I could find that wasn't just some guy set up a fraternity like that. That was they're all like that. This one is the only one.
I'll wait for the day. It's just they did this, and that's it.
What's the shortest one that we could work into like a film? Like, the Mafia has a new dawn or something like that. How would that be? Anyway, Old School. Mitch, Frank, and Beanie are disillusioned with their personal lives, beginning when Mitch's nymphomaniac girlfriend Heidi cheats on him. Then former party animal Frank gets married, but unwilling to let go of his wild life, and Beanie is a family man seeking to reclaim his wild and crazy youth. Not a great sentence there, man. Beanie suggests that they form their own fraternity in Mitch's new house on a college campus to relive their glory days by bringing together a variety of misfit college students, losers, middle-aged and elderly retirees as their new friends, and later try to avoid being evicted by the new dean of students, Pritchard, whom still holds a personal grudge against all 3 of them. That was 2 sentences, that entire thing.
He's tired. He's a nap now.
Oh, no, I should have gone for the 1 sentence one. There we go. So that's what the film is about. That pretty much sums up everyone's motivation. Who picked? It was the wheel, but it was a special wheel. It was the wheel of Sean. Sean, our often referred to, I don't know, the silent, unseen 4th member of the podcast, basically, Sean.
Well, when we came up with this original idea, Chris was like the second.
It was the backup.
I was backup. I said they were to do it, and I got forced into it through a shot. So,
Yep.
No, I think Nicola accepted on my behalf.
She did.
I think she did. I can't remember why, but yeah.
She decided that Chrissy did a hobby so she could upside herself, I think.
I did ask him why he put it in the wheel. I was a number filler.
Okay, so he wanted to get
It's
up
not
to
even one of
20
his
or whatever it
picks.
was. Right,
So there
okay,
you go.
so it's down Sean's favourite films. Had we seen it before? I've seen it a lot before.
Yes.
I've seen it at least once.
At least once. Okay. Which channel would we normally find Old School on?
E4.
E4. I've got Channel 4, but yeah, I
Yeah.
feel like we're kind of hanging about that neck of the woods. Every week now the film's a Channel 4 one way or another.
That's because BBC just like showed dramas and boring shit. ITV showed the occasional action banger. Channel 4 is the main one. I
And
really have 4 channels. Well,
Channel 5
is
is the shite ones, really.
Yeah.
Things that nobody else would possibly even air go on Channel 5. Which version did we watch? There are 2 versions of Old School. I watched the one on Sky Cinema. That's the one I watched, thinking, oh, I'll just watch this one. Turns out that was the uncut DVD version that I've got. I do have the DVD, but I don't have it in the flat. So I thought, oh, I'll watch the Sky Cinema one. Yeah, it was the uncut version that Sky have got on. Now, this is how you can tell if it was the uncut or the standard.
It is.
There's 3 things that are different in the uncut version. In the uncut one, Frank runs and kicks a car and sets off a car alarm when he's streaking. So that happens in the uncut one. You get about an extra minute's worth of Andy Dick, which is hard to tell. Like he's in there a bit longer, and then there's apparently something like 5 seconds more of the KY jelly fighting. So I'm assuming they cut out.
So I think you watched the uncut one as well.
More of the explicit stuff of each scene, but apparently it's like about a minute and a half extra you get in the uncut version to the standard version. But I somehow got the uncut version, so I saw all of that. On to point 2 then. That was very quick. Point 2 is the high bits. What we thought the best things were about the film, one way or another. Sean picked. He's not here to start speaking, so who wants to go first?
I reckon Chris, because he's closer to Sean.
Okay.
Oh, I was going to say, like right at the start, I love the double bluff of the cheating girlfriend. Like, you hear the noises and you go upstairs, you know exactly she's banging somebody.
Yeah. But then Chantel was exactly the same. She's it's going to be like, she's going to be cheating on him. And it's like, now it's like, see, it wasn't.
But then, like, the rug's pulled out and this guy just comes out behind and just grabs him.
Yeah, just like that. Yeah, that's what's going on.
I don't understand that. That's the bit I don't understand. Like, one of them had a blindfold on.
Both did.
And it's like, well, they both had blindfolds on. So it's like, surely they could hear, though.
Yeah, you're
like him kicking off and he's grabbing this other guy.
I think maybe because they were expecting somebody else, because a nice little cameo.
Yeah.
Comes in, so maybe they were expecting him to be that guy.
Yeah, is it Creepy Gangbang Guy? I think he's credited as. I think it's something like that is his name. It's just Gangbang Guy is his character name in this film. Yeah, so maybe they thought that finally old Gangbang Guy had appeared. But you're right. But why would he still give him like a bear hug? Like, strange approach. But yeah, a good start. You're right. The double bluff is what makes it good. But you think you know where it's going, and it goes the other direction. My first high point. I'm at the wedding for my first high point.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah,
the wedding.
Vince Vaughn owns the wedding from the minute you see him. Like immediately, because I'm sure the listeners are aware, we've been at a wedding recently, as an Andy got married. So immediately I'm watching this scene and I'm reliving me watching the 3 of you, Sean, Chris, and Andy at the top, thinking, who was Vince Vaughn in your wedding, Andy? Was anyone?
They were actually well behaved, to be fair.
They were supportive. They weren't saying, "This is your last chance."
However.
Right. Okay. But yeah, Vince Vaughn tried to talk Will Ferrell out of it till the very last second, and just some of the stuff he comes out with is really, really good. But then he continues going, and we get one of the best musical performances in cinema history at the wedding, with the Dan Band performing.
Love the Dan Band.
Is it?
I think it's something else, because I feel like I've seen them before.
Hangover is the other famous one. And they play at the wedding at the end of the Hangover, obviously. And they're in another one. They have a third appearance in another film where they're also being the Dan Band. But when Total Eclipse of the Heart is the famous one, but then they play the next song, which I don't know, but then it cuts to the top table, and there's Vince Vaughn singing along, absolutely like yelling yelling at the top of his voice along with the lyrics.
More ready to a good band, because that elevated that song to different proportions there.
Yeah.
I can't remember, Total Eclipse of fucking Heart, or whatever it was.
I would absolutely guarantee you I've heard that version more than like the Bonnie Tyler version.
Yeah.
It's a nailed on certainty, and any playlist I make is Total Eclipse of the Heart by the Dan Band. So that's my high point. Andy, any high points from you?
I was, like I said, Vince Vaughn stuff, but like just everything about the wedding as well. Like lots of it just didn't make sense, including how did they get massive photos of them in their wedding gear right behind them, like straight away?
Oh, really? I
Like,
didn't notice that.
That confused me. But yeah, it's like she's got like a really nice picture and he's kind of a bit weird, but yeah, when it zooms out, it's just like it's them in their outfits that they're currently wearing. And it's just like everything about it, obviously just being at a recent wedding, it actually was funny just watching everything.
Yeah, it's more relatable when you've like within the last 3 weeks been at a wedding.
Yeah. But like my next high point is pretty much every scene that Vince Vaughn is in.
Really?
Like
Okay.
I'm a Vince Vaughn mark on this one. Like sometimes Vince Vaughn's hit or miss. But I think he just like his next scene, like basically what we'll go on to is like when obviously he gets into the house and straight away he's going to throw a rager. But it's like when he's like planning things, it's just like the earmuffs of the kid.
The earmuffs is amazing. Yeah.
Like,
I used to remember that. I switched too much in front of my kids.
Yeah.
It's just like Vince Vaughn's parenting is like a high point. It's just that's how a person should be.
Oh yeah, it's like very good. He has both his life and his family life. Like he can, the two can cross over. He has his functions for how it crosses over.
Like he's happily married with his kids, and he's like, oh, we're gonna get so much ass here. We're gonna go so many parties, and then he's like really close. Like later on, he's really close to like cheating, but
he doesn't. Because he's an honourable man. He's thinking about his friends. He's not thinking about him. That's how I perceived it was. It's for Mitch, and there's no ulterior motive. He wants to have fun, yes, but it's for Mitch, the whole thing. Yeah. So my next high point is at the party. I've got Mitchapalooza. Yeah.
It's specifically Frank the Tank.
Yep.
Yeah.
For me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people rave about him doing his little bit beforehand for why he can't start drinking, which I wasn't like. It's funny enough. Apparently, there's a famous movie mistake in there.
That's why I'm like, those like, you come out for a drink. I can't. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And it's like, I don't know. And then one drink turns into 3, and then you're fucking paralytic.
There's no spoiler, but like when you recast, 100% Chris is Frank the Tank.
Right. Okay.
He's very much he's very quiet. Oh no, I'm going to be good. I'm not allowed to come out and that. And then as soon as he gets a couple of drinks and he hits that sweet nectar past his lips, he becomes Frank the Tank all the way.
Okay.
That was so funny though. He's like, you just absolutely like, it tastes so good. It gets to the lips.
Yes, when it touches your lips. Yeah. So I've got that. I enjoy him being Frank the Tank, but him once he decides he's going to streak is where I thought it gets really, really funny. First of all, him interrupting Snoop-a-loop, I remember as he says to him, and then he drops the microphone and just him bending over to pick it up, and everybody's going, oh! He does it.
I don't. As the guy in the green hat, I generally think he must have forgot he was in the movie because he's like trying to stop him getting to Snoop Dogg.
It did almost seem like proper real, like when he was like just like bodyguard defense.
No, it's okay. I'll do this thing.
So I had to. That guy's being mentioned later on, so I had to find out who he was. Apparently, the role of Man in the Green Hat basically is playing himself. Bishop Don Magic Juan is who that is.
What's his name?
But that's himself. It's like how Snoop is playing himself. Bishop Don Magic Juan is playing himself as well. So there you go. Bending over, everyone laughing, and then him doing we're going streaking like on his own, and the wife finding him. Oh, all the other guys, they're just coming. Get in the car, Frank. Get in the car.
I think I've seen this film once, and that is all I remember from this film is him streaking.
Running up the course.
The ass is getting into the car.
Yeah. Like nobody actually who gets arse first into like the back door of a car? Like maybe if you've got to pull the front seat forward to get in, but if it's actual door, who goes butt first into the car?
He's like go proper in.
Yeah, I can literally imagine. This is the thing. I could just imagine Nicola driving, trying to pick up Chris as well, and that would be happening.
Christopher, get in the car.
I could see it now. I literally can picture that scene happen with Chris.
But yeah, that the beginning, him getting just as it touches his lips to him getting picked up. You think KFC's still open? Is the final line.
That's the final line, yeah. But like even like this film starts like really strong. It's like bam, 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 because like it goes right on to the next high point. Is when obviously you get the little bit of story where it's like Jeremy Piven's like, right, you guys can't do that.
That's my next high point. If you're going past that, I need to stop you because that's my next high point. Is him coming in? I've got Cheese's first scene. Basically, the way Piven and Vaughn have the conversation with each other is just magic. With like Yeah. There's Wilson goes, didn't we lock you in a dumpster? Yeah, I got out. That's what he says back. It's amazing. And then, can I ask you a question? Absolutely not. Okay, very good to see you. Yeah. Just the way Jeremy Piven acts again.
I'm gonna bring that into my life now. If M6 asks you a question, absolutely not, and just walk away.
Yeah. Just really cheerfully to say like, no. Yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, just the introduction of a villain. Here's the problem here. This has all been successful. Frank may have got naked and ran about, but Piven, here's your villain, and he's really good at it. Was good. So that I need to have that high point in there. Carry on.
So yeah, basically you go from that, but then you go straight into right. Now we've got a story. So they've got to make a fraternity because that's the no-brainer. But it's the whole them getting their pledges.
Oh, the kidnapping, yes.
The kidnapping.
It's so over the top. It's brilliant. It's just like getting blue and just like he goes in nice, but then just tackling the guy and
guy in the pond. Yeah.
It was the one when he's out shopping with his wife and he takes her away and he goes, "What is happening?" And he goes, "You said that I'll fucking kill you." Oh, wait, joking. We're back by dinner time.
Yeah. Yeah, and
but
then, of course, Master of Puppets blaring in the background as well. It's really good. I'll mention that now. Throughout, they picked the right song for every scene they ever.
Oh no, well, the song for the party, I generally thought they were going to play "Party Hard" by Andrew WK, and then they went a different way with it.
Right,
it starts the exact same.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. But yeah, the kidnapping is amazing.
But yeah, it brings me on to my pivotal high point. So you got that, and you got the burn, but then it ends on the brick going off the side, which I literally no matter how many times I see that scene, I know what's going to happen. But Chantel was just like, "Oh, I bet somebody's going to like think it's like it's not going to be long enough," and she's like, "Oh, I bet it's going to be blue." And I was like, just the big guy hitting the drain. It was just perfect.
Going, it goes all the way down. Yeah.
But just the fact he's still lying there screaming, he's like, "Oh, sorry, that wasn't actually meant to happen." So it's like nobody's running down to help him.
Do you think there was enough cord for it to touch the bottom of the sewer? Again, sewer's coming into it as always. Do you think it's dangling?
It's dangling.
It's still dangling?
I think he's definitely dangling.
Because watching it again, I can't imagine the agony of landing kind of chest and kind of, I don't know, thighs on the manhole would be the hard. Like, I feel like the string yanking your genitals would be painful enough, but landing clavicle first on a manhole would be really bad.
Well, how tight it was, I think I might just kind of slipped off and he's just lying there fucking crushed.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I think he was still on there. But yeah, every time I see that scene, it just makes me giggle.
I generally forgot about that even happened, but they're just standing there going, "Oh, somebody's getting it here." But it's just before that as well. Frank Tag, I think you mentioned before. You're like, "You're my boy, bro. You're gonna do this."
Yes, you're my boy. Yeah. You mentioned earmuffs already, but as a high point, I have to mention earmuffs as a system. But the second scene where they're in the kitchen with the boy sitting on the counter, and then Mitch swears, and then Vince Vaughn is just like, "Oh, why? The kid's right there. All you have to do is the earmuffs, and you can say whatever you want." And this is the way he swears at him, and then Frank just goes, "Cock, balls." And it's like, okay, I've established that you don't have to keep going or whatever it was. Yeah, the scene where it's just like the swear words that he elected to say were "cock, balls." It really cracks me up.
I think it's funny. He's more annoyed at the fact that he swore in front of his kid, other than like anything else.
Yeah.
It's the crossover of his family life and the fraternity life. He's trying to keep them separate.
And next, the blowjob class with Andy.
Okay.
Anything next?
That's what you got next, have you?
I don't know if you got anything beforehand. Sorry,
I've not.
I don't think I do.
I don't like Andy Dick. It's an unintentional pun of names here, but I found it really funny. Like his story was just like talking about the blowjob. Is like, "Did you make some guy come too fast? You come in your eye?" And I said, "I've got my lazy eye."
I'm going to reserve judgment on the Andy Dick vegetable scene because it's going to come up in point 3 for me, Chris. So
I'm the same.
You can stake your claim here.
Funny, that was all.
However, I can't debate it with you because point 3 is a bit light on me, so I kind of have to save it. So I'm going to go on to Andy's had his high point of the film, his peak. My peak, I think, is next. I don't think we've got anything else before it. But Max's birthday party, where he has a petting zoo. The birthday party itself is okay. There's some funny bits. I quite like Vince Vaughn telling Spanish to put his head back on again because you're making all the kids upset. You don't see me breaking character as he's dressed like a clown sitting down and smoking. And then wag the tail when you're walking is funny enough. But no, once we get introduced, or Frank gets introduced to the petting zoo, which was very light on animals. It was basically just a horse. For the counting the cows and goats, I couldn't see any. So yeah, the petting zoo, finding the gun, that's a tranquilizer dart. Oh, really? And then, Sean William Scott's reaction.
Yeah.
Yes. I took one right to the jugular. It's amazing. And then you go fucking dart as the voice starts making what? And then, as I said to Andy, his introduction, you crazy, you crazy, you crazy.
That's what that's from.
Yeah.
I remember hearing it.
Yeah, so you're I like you, but you're crazy. And then he starts walking off, and then because he's all just going,
Godzilla,
shoving the kid, and the kid standing just knocks him out of the way.
Absolutely, getting the kid with the head, falling at the table of presents, and then into the.
Oh, he's gone again.
Again, every time he gets so excited
Cool.
when he gets cut off.
Is he?
Oh.
I swear it's the same point of every
He's
podcast
back.
I cut out.
Yep.
Nothing changes for me. It must be half an hour into it. I freeze and
You're literally so excited and you're so animated and you're like.
Through the table of presents, into the pool, and then yes, they hit the perfect song that Simon and Garfunkel, "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend."
Afterwards, well, when he kisses him, he's like giving him mouth to mouth. She goes, "Oh, don't fucking kiss me!"
And kicks him back in the pool again. Yeah, so absolute best bit in the movie is taking the tranquilizer dart to the neck. So I only have one high point beyond the tranquilizer dart. So who else has got some?
I've got one more as well. It's I forgot how much of a voice of an angel Will Ferrell has when he sings at Blues.
Yeah, he does. That's that song I didn't know until this film came out. And then it's become a bit of a half banger in my playlist. Is "Dust in the Wind" by Kansas. So that's a good one. So yeah, I've only got one more high point, and that is not so much them doing their challenges to be accepted into the fraternity or into the university as a fraternity, because some of them are okay, some of them are kind of funny, but again, not Frank being dressed as a mascot being set on fire, which I realised is the mascot gets set on fire in at least one other film that Will Ferrell's in, but afterwards, the debrief in the locker room after he's been set on fire, with everybody else sitting in a nice kind of organised way in their vest and all that, and him just in his tighty whities, bright pink, rather than being burned, and be like, God, get angry.
He smashed Vince Vaughn in the face for that chair.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Just his animated anger, and then Vince Vaughn tries to pat him on the back to console him, and he's like, because he's just been set on fire in the previous scene. But yeah, that's my last high point, is again, the competition, wrapping up the film. It's really, when you think about it, the story of the film basically is these guys set up a fraternity, but they have to prove to the university that they can exist. The proving doesn't start until about 25 minutes to go at the end of the film.
Yeah.
Like an hour of the film is set up, and 25 minutes is delivering. So that's my final high point. My
final high point is the end credits, where the two villains finally get their proper comeuppance.
I don't think Jeremy Pivens was wanted.
I think he was. He was a bit of a bell end.
It was an absolute prick to them, but not on the levels of a prick that Mark was. Mark was a delightfully horrible person throughout the entire film, with his kind of very pointless character. But he was. That
happily brings me on to the next point. He's my first point on my low points.
On to point 3, low points. What's the worst things and bits of the film where Chris has already kicked it off? Carry on.
Oh yeah, Mark. He's just like a grade A prick. Like
straight away as well, isn't he?
I know he seems like a nice guy. He's I've heard much. You got a fraternity, just drop in a minute, and then he's upstairs trying to bang some waitress, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, waitress basically. Yeah.
And then he says like, "Oh, you can't tell me because that's guy code." It's like, it's not a guy code if you're a prick.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
And tell Ellen Pompey that her boyfriend's a douche.
Yeah, I feel like Mitch makes a strange decision by not telling her. Because she is absolutely flirting with Mitch the entire time that they're on screen in the film. So I think she's making herself available. And Mitch has got the excuse. That Mark's an absolute prick. There you go. He definitely decided on guy code or whatnot. This invented guy code thing. It's not a guy code if I don't know you. I don't know who you are. You just seem like an absolute arse. So I could tell.
As well, said, are we not locking? I was like, well, the door's open. I'm not locking the door.
Yeah, that's your mistake by not locking a door. It's a bathroom door. It's probably gonna have a lock on it. You didn't lock it. Yeah, I agree. I'm not sure he's a low point because he's a very good arsehole. Like I enjoy it, but I can segue it slightly into my other one of my other low points. I don't have many. Do we really need the Ellen Pompeo? Is it Pompeo? Whatever her name is. Her storyline.
Jack Bauer's daughter.
Jack Bauer's daughter. No, not her. Not her. What's her character name?
She's old, but the same age as Jack Bauer.
Ellen Pompeo, the love interest for Mitch.
Yeah, her. Yeah.
Do we really need that? I feel like that story is just it's there to make Mitch feel like an even nice guy, and to give him a happy ending at the end because she doesn't really have an influence on the film. She pops into about 4 scenes, and it's kind of crossover. But at the end of the film, like, oh yeah, and like her storyline, she disappears for 10 minutes, comes back. Oh yeah, I found out Mark was a dick. I'm gonna be with you now. And it's like, oh, there we go, happy ending. Yeah, our hero didn't actually do anything different. She just changed her mind.
I think you kind of assaulted her at one point.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, it seemed it either wasn't enough or it was too much. It's hard to decide that part of the storyline.
Since we're all hating the characters, Jack Bauer's daughter, that's a storyline I just didn't give a shit about.
Was that Alicia Cuthbert?
Yeah, Alicia Cuthbert.
Yes.
Yeah.
Was that necessary?
It was
very unnecessary. Yeah.
Like there was no real that's the word. There was nothing like for sleeping with like was she underage? What was the state or the end, Bruce? We need to get what state it was.
Oh, I didn't do my. I know my numbers, but I didn't do my research.
I don't know what age she was, but she was in high school, so
I'll have found the information by the time you come back to me for.
But yeah, I felt like that whole story wasn't really needed, other than the fact that other dude wanted to be in the fraternity and kind of was going to blackmail him. Just.
Actually, you can't work for some guy for however long and not see his daughter in photos or she's in the office at some point.
It just seemed like it was there just for a little gag and no real payoff, really.
Yeah, exactly. I'll save this. I'll save it for stats.
Good, but yeah, that just annoyed me just because I'd seen her being Jack Bauer's daughter first, and then she was in this, and then I think I seen Girl Next Door afterwards. But yeah, she's kind of wasted in this. Yeah. She's not great in anything she's in, but she's Jack Bauer's daughter.
She just could have been the story, but then her character obviously couldn't be this. But yeah, again, it's another bit. It might have done with more, because there was more like. But the 4th or 5th scene with Mitch at work, you find out he's a lawyer. Like when she takes the thing to him to check for her, that's when basically you find out he is a lawyer. Other than that, he's just office businessman. Like you don't actually know what he does outside of that. Like they could have fleshed out that side of it a bit more if they wanted as well, or just done away with it.
I'm also confused because he seemed to travel by plane to go to his girlfriend's house. So does he live quite far away from his work? Or...
No, he was at a conference. That was my perception.
Okay, that makes sense.
I think he'd flown to a conference. Okay. So I've got one more low point. Chris mentioned it as a high point. Andy Dick and his vegetables. Talking of things that have no reason, there's actually no purpose. Like the payoff to this scene is Frank comes in, attacks him, and gets beaten up. And like that's it. They'd already split up at that point. They'd already had his confession at the marriage counselling and all that.
And it must have been a hell of a cringy scene filming that as well, because they all looked uncomfortable as fuck as well. Except for one of them had the giggles.
Like I said, you get like too early. That's why you got a lazy eye. That's one thing that made me laugh.
Yeah, but like it's the only scene Andy Dick's in, so it doesn't build any character for him. And like I'll say, there's some people in that scene. That's probably might be the peak of their career. That's the biggest movie they've ever been in. That's the scene they're in, and they're sucking on a banana. And it's like,
but it made me hate. It's one of my low points is Marissa even more because he lives there. Like Frank the Tank, he's coming home to try and work things out, and she's just been a complete bitch.
Yeah, I suppose, but he did assault her guest.
She thought he was blowing, or he thought she was blowing. I'd attack somebody. I thought Nicola was doing that too.
Exactly. But then if they weren't, would you have been like, oh my god, I'm sorry?
Yeah. Heads are bad. I got battered.
But yeah, again, completely needless. Like I don't think it helps Frank any. Like I don't know more about Frank. It wasn't funny. Chris may have enjoyed it, but I didn't think it was funny. But yeah, get rid of that. And that's me. I don't really have any low points outside of that. I don't know if anyone's got any others.
Snoop Dogg. I don't like his music.
Snoop's good, but
yeah, it wasn't a good Snoop Dogg song necessarily. He's got a few good ones. That wasn't one. Yeah, and the guy who was properly belting it out, the guy who was doing the singing.
Yeah,
he didn't have a good day either on that day. Like he kind of missed his key, I think, when he was doing it. But
That's really
that's for low points.
Yeah, I think so. Other than it just kind of tails off at the end, they kind of wrap it up a bit too fast.
Maybe, yeah.
It's like a Saturday Night Live thing. There's just lots of bits that make no sense.
Yeah, they kind of tie it into a story. Yeah.
Like the way, like you said, the adjective thing. That's like one Saturday Night Live thing. Just wanted to add it in. And then there's another bit they wanted to add in, like at the party. There's just nothing that's makes it.
I do have one low point. You can't call a guy Spanish because he's Spanish.
It's not Spanish.
They call him Spanish, though.
They call him Spanish. Is that because it's the language he speaks? I guess I don't know, but yeah.
I don't know. But a lot
even Spanish.
I think he actually might be Spanish because he is in Reaper.
He is in Reaper. Yes.
So yeah, but yeah, I just feel like that's offensive in this day and age. So you can't call people Spanish now.
Fair enough.
I'm bringing back the woke culture.
Woke culture.
The wokes.
Andy's woke now. Okay, on to point 4, the stats. I've kept the usual statistics that we keep on every episode. Only 4 shits, which is really strange. I thought it was going to be more than that. And even one of them wasn't a full, but it was more of a kind of shit. So like earmuffs, there were 15 F-bombs, though. Quite a lot of them. 2 explosions. That was the car exploding twice at the end. Basically, it was like ba-boom, ba-boom, as it always does. And 3 deaths, I think. Because I think Piven is probably a goner.
Actually, was it lads right on him?
Oh, he's dead.
So him and Mark and then Blue, of course, the 3 deaths. Our quotas, cows and goats. I scoured the petting zoo and I could not see a cow or a goat at the petting zoo. You would imagine to be a goat somewhere at a petting zoo because it was just like a little pony and that seemed to be it at the petting zoo. And no dead animals. None of them ended up dead. Pedophiles. So, what was her name? Darcy? Alicia Cuthbert. 7 months away from graduating high school. Now, you graduate high school in the summer, so therefore, to be 7 months away, it would have to be late in the previous year. So we're looking at November, December. So you graduate high school the year you turn 18. So I think very, 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 very close. She may have just turned 18, maybe, I think. Otherwise, she may have been 17 and Mitch may have accidentally done what he thinks he's accidentally done. But it's iffy. I would say he could get away with not actually knowing. Like, I think there was no grooming involved. I don't think it was more of a case of it happened. But I think it's close. But I think Mitch might be okay. But however, factually, he may have actually had sex with an underage girl at the party. So maybe a pedophile. The devil, no. The KKK or Nazis, no. And no, I feel like there was going to be some suggestion of racism one way or another, but I don't think there was any suggestion.
I would say this is the least racist film we've watched in a long time.
Very good. So, Tom Cruise trifecta. I don't think anyone rode a motorcycle in the film at any point that I could remember, so we miss out on the Tom Cruise trifecta. Lots of running, and a lot of people get the girl at the end, but I think we miss out there. One of the things I did for this episode, the thing I did for this episode was hard to do, so I wasn't going to count olds or schools, because that's quite difficult. So I thought, this film, I think there's lots of things I say on a weekly basis that I get from this film. And I thought, not memes necessarily, but kind of catchphrases and little things that I say. Apparently, there's 5 things that I say quite regularly that come from this film. One is earmuffs. When people aren't supposed to be swearing, I do reference earmuffs. Yep. Honestly, I did like if I don't want someone to hear me swearing, I will say earmuffs to them like that. Obviously, I don't have any kids.
Chris wants to do it now all the time.
You're watching Captain America.
Yeah. It's so good once it hits your lips. I do say that when I very much like something. The one that's the most that I was surprised by was cheese. I say that all the time when talking about cheese. And I think I'd forgotten that's where it comes from. You're my boy, Blue. If something is blue, like Jade once had a dog called Blue, so I'd always tell him he was my boy all the time. So that, and then I like you. You're crazy, but I like you. I do say that quite a lot. So they're the 5 things from the film that I'd say on a regular basis. But did they say the thing? Did they say old school in Old School?
Never.
No, they do not. It's quite clearly again one of these. We can call it Old School. Yeah, that's the name we can give this film. So that's me for stats. Chris, how about you?
I struggled. I was going to do like Old School as well, but I could be bored. But Frank the Tank is said 14 times.
Ah, very good.
There's like it was after the party because he kept just chatting Frank the Tank for a while, and I thought he's going to be involved big time here. And there's one nut shot in the KY jelly.
There was. I clocked that one as well.
I don't know whether to count the concrete block as a nut shot.
I don't know. That's a pretty epic nut shot here.
It was more the Frank than the beans, I think. So okay, then that's us for stats. On to point 5, the 10-point podcast quiz. Andy is the quizmaster. Andy is on a good run of very entertaining quizzes, so I'm intrigued to see what he's got this week.
Right, this one is... I was going to do a fancy format. One day I'm going to do it. It's always too complicated because I know you used to moan. So we'll stick with the standard format, going back and forth until I run out of questions and then there's a winner.
Okay.
So we'll go with Bruce first.
I think it's my turn. I think Chris went first last time.
Right.
It's the second question. It's difficult.
This quiz is called Old School.
At this point, I think you don't have to tell us what the quiz is called anymore because it's always just the title of the film every week.
No, but it's spelled SKOOL. School. Old School.
It's not a spelling bee, is it?
Oh, right, carry on. Right.
Right. So this is about old school things and things that we did in the past, like old school. Get it?
I now get you, yes.
Right. So you'll see where the tone is going with this first question. Bruce, what sequence of numbers do you have to enter into a calculator so when you flip it upside down it spells boobies?
This is not my answer, but I for some reason thought you were going to tell me what sequence of numbers do you have to enter in Lost.
That's what I read as well.
And I was going to go 4, 8, 15, 16, 28, 42 because I know what they are. What do you enter in a calculator for that? It would be, so you start with the first number, 58008.
No, Chris.
What? To spell what?
Boobies.
Oh, right.
All right. So 5318008.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that was me not listening.
I thought you said boobs as well first. So you said
boobies.
No.
Right, Chris. What is the translation of the word Tamagotchi?
Pocket pet.
No. Bruce.
All right. Someone like one in your pocket or something like that.
It's not. It is Egg Watch.
Oh. Egg Watch. Do you know what? I saw that the other day. I don't know why.
Tama means egg and gotchi means watch.
Oh, okay.
The Tamagotchi, Egg Watch. Chris.
Bruce.
Me.
Bruce. Which computer software would you find the annoying Clippy assistant? What was he first appeared in? Like which
software? Would that be? What's that? Microsoft Word?
I need more.
Microsoft Windows?
No.
Less?
You went too far.
I don't know.
Chris?
Word?
No, that's less.
Yeah.
It was Microsoft Office 97.
Ah, right, okay. I see, okay.
He was across the board on Word and Excel and stuff like that.
Oh,
and he always got in the way.
Okay.
Chris.
Brain's hurt.
Chris? Is Chris.
Yeah.
The old school drink Diet Virgin Cola. What colour were the bottles?
What Diet Virgin Cola?
So the Richard Branson Diet.
I quite like Virgin Cola. I think I liked it.
What colour were the bottles?
Red.
No, Bruce.
Were they silver?
They were silver.
Yeah.
Yes, they were.
So it says Diet Coke.
No, but the bottle was silver.
The bottle.
Oh, that's
wasn't see-through.
Yeah,
it was actually,
it wasn't. You couldn't see the
silver.
cola. It was actually silver. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, for the Americans and international listeners, this quiz is kind of mostly British.
Very 90s British.
Yes. Bruce, what year did the Nokia 3410 come out?
Oh, right. 3410. So that was about that year. 2003.
No, Chris.
2002.
It is 2002.
I would have gone later.
I'm glad you went first because I would have guessed like fucking 87 or something like that.
Oh, really?
I don't know. The idea.
Right, Chris. What cereal brand created Golden Nuggets?
Nestle.
It is Nestle.
Oh, very good.
Bruce, when you first opened a brand new Furby, which language did it speak?
I never had one. I was too old for a Furby when they came around. What language did it speak when you first? Furbish?
Hey! It literally is Furbish.
As a joke, I was going to go and say Furbish.
Chris, another food-based one. What is the name of Cadbury's Twirl which has a white center in it. A limited edition. People want it back, but it's not came back yet.
I've seen it as well. I can't remember what the name of it is. I know. White twirl.
Chris. It's not a white twirl.
Would it be a whirl?
It wasn't a whirl, it was a Cadbury snowflake.
Oh, that's a flake. That's not a twirl. That's a flake, but a white version.
It was a twirl.
That's not a twirl. A flake
it's a twirl.
Oh.
Bruce, another toy-based question for you.
Right, okay.
Which toy company created the original Stretch Armstrong?
Oh my god. Toy company, I only know about 3. It strikes me as a Mattel toy.
Not a Mattel.
Yes. Fuck, that's what I was going. Hasbro.
It wasn't Hasbro, it was Kenner, the other one.
Oh, no, I never heard of Kenner.
Right.
Hasbro was my second guess.
Right, here we go. Chris.
Mm-hmm.
In Beast Wars, which is the Transformers spin-off series, what are the goodies and what are the baddies referred as?
Good. No.
They're not goodies and baddies, Chris.
Happies. I don't fucking know.
Right, Chris.
Right, you can tell me after my first guess if I'm wrong, because I'm not going to get the villain. So in Transformers, you have the Autobots.
Yeah.
Now, if this is to do with Transformers, I'm going to guess the Auto Beasts for the good guy team.
No.
Damn it! Right, I don't know then.
It was the Maximals and the Predacons.
Absolutely no chance.
What's the scores?
2-3 in favour of Chris.
Right.
This is a tie up if I get it right.
Oh, here we go.
Which game show would contestants answer letter-based trivia questions on a honeycomb screen?
Blockbusters.
It's a Blockbusters.
Yeah. So that's
Right.
3-3.
3-3, right. Couple more questions, so this is it. Chris, Danger Mouse was a children's cartoon show shown on which channel? No.
Oh. Right. I'm going to
Guess
guess
you won.
ITV?
It was ITV.
Yes.
There you go. Chris, I'll give you a chance to redeem yourself. Yeah, I know. Because Chris always feels like he's getting screwed, so I'm going to try and screw over Bruce.
Oh, no, you could like rattle to the questions there. Blockbusters, I'll pick.
All right, Chris, okay. If you get this, you automatically win and Bruce can argue.
I will.
Right. Chris, what are the name of the original starter Pokemon that you can choose in Pokemon Yellow?
Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander.
He gets it right. He automatically wins.
He had the last question was his first.
I don't know.
So it should have been my question first anyway. Never mind. You've got him one that
I'll call it a tie because
No.
you did get it fair and square.
Oh, you'll call it a tie despite the fact I won, will you?
Oh no, because you shenanigans, he picked Blockbusters. Like you scrolled through them all to find these and want to tie it up.
That. I don't think I've ever watched an episode of Blockbusters.
Watch Blockbusters.
We'll find out when it comes to the point at the end of this. Luckily, I'm the one that counts up who wins the quiz. So
I know. Chris 1, Bruce 12, or 19.
There we go. A blast from the past. Thank you, Andy. I'd forgotten about some of those things.
Old school.
Yeah.
So in my head, I had Opal Fruits. I was like, he's going to ask about Starburst at some point here.
Yeah, very good. On to point 6 on the podcast. Movies within movies. Over to Chris for the 10-point podcast universe. Don't worry, Chris. I have backed you up on this one. So.
Okay. This is the longest it's been for a while.
Yeah.
So, Will Ferrell, Frank Tank. I generally forgot we did semi-pro. He was Jackie Moon.
Mm-hmm.
This one flew by me most of the time. Jeremy Piven.
Yep.
As Dean Pritchard. He was in Edge of Tomorrow.
Oh,
as
what's it?
A colonel, Walter Marks.
I missed that. I got his other one, Jeremy Piven.
But I can't remember seeing him. He's in Rock and Roller as Roman.
Rock and Roller, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Forgot we did Rock and Roller.
That's
Ellen
100 plus.
Yeah. Ellen Pompeo was a couple episodes ago.
Like 3 episodes ago, yeah.
Now, catch him if you can.
Yep. Sean William Scott was literally last week.
Last week, yeah.
This is another one I forgot. Matt Walsh, he's one of those faces that's absolutely everywhere.
Yeah, he's one of those.
But he was a referee in semi-pro.
He was. Father Phil, I think his name was.
The one that Jackie Moon or something like
I'll
that.
kill your family. Something like that he shouts at him. He was something else, Matt Walsh. Did you get the other thing he was in?
I did not.
He was in Office Christmas Party as well.
Was he?
That's one of the films I've forgotten we've done.
Harv Presnell, who's Mr. Springbrook, was in Face Off as Lazaro. I keep forgetting about Fargo. He was Wade Gustafson.
Yeah, so we forgot about him when we did Face Off because
Yeah.
he was the father of the missing woman in Fargo. I recognised his face, and this was like, who is that guy? I could not place him, and then I looked at, oh yeah, that's who he was.
This is the last one I got because I did go through everybody.
Oh, you missed a bunch.
I probably have. Rob Corddry as Warren. He was in Semi-Pro as Kyle.
Okay, does he have a line in this, Rob? I think it's Rob Corddry. Does he have a line in Old School? Because he's in a lot of scenes, but I don't think he spoke at any point. But yes, he's the much maligned Monarchs storyline in Semi-Pro that we hated on. He was also at Office Christmas Party with Rob Corddry. You have missed 4.
That's nice. There's a lot of people I don't even bother going through.
Right, I'll go in order of interest. Andy Dick was in The Cable Guy, so you missed that.
Yeah. He was in something else.
That's the only one I could see, but you might be right. We've done Weensy before, the big fat guy who's in the local.
Myself and Irene.
Yeah, he was one of the kids that grew up into. Is Chris frozen? I think Chris is frozen.
I think he's broken.
I think he's very confused about it.
He's just so pissed off with us.
He's got down. Oh, I missed 4, damn it.
Fuck yeah, I'm done.
He might come back. I'll carry on. So Weensy, he was in Me, Myself and Irene. The 2 best ones. Jesse Heyman. That name alone, Andy, won't mean anything. We've done him before. He was in Catch Me If You Can. He's the ginger, curly-haired extra guy who shows up and everything. So I think we've only done him twice, but I might have missed him.
He's mostly a TV extra, but like, as soon as I see him on the TV, he's like, yeah, it's him again.
But I think Catch Me If You Can was also DreamWorks, so he might be in with the studio. Maybe that's how we did it. So maybe it was an evolution and we missed him. But the last one, again, the name won't mean much. Chris is contacting us, Andy. I don't know if you want to see what he's saying. Noel Guglielmi, he shouts from the other side of the road, "Hey, Godfather," over at Mitch at one point. We've done it before. He was in Crank. But he is the guy who always plays Hector in everything. The kind of Hispanic bald guy.
Oh, yeah.
He's the guy from the other side of the road outside Mitch's house that goes, "Hey, Godfather," when Ellen Pompeo's talking to him. So, we've done him a couple of times. He's never been Hector yet. He's always been called something else both times. But yeah, he was in the background. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11 people we've done before.
Amazing.
Which is why I did it.
And Chris is going to have to re-listen to this episode to carry on. But I think we just carry on. We power through this. Just because this is what a live podcast does, even though I think Chris's point's coming up very soon. But we'll power through. It'll be fine.
I'll carry on for Chris because I've recasted. Normally we get Chris to recast. I thought this is quite an obvious one. You've said that Chris should be Frank the Tank. And you've
100%.
You got everything. However, we do slot in quite nicely here. You're recently married, so therefore you're Frank. Chris is long time married, therefore he is Beansy or Beanie. Is it Beanie? And then I'm unmarried, so therefore I'm Luke Wilson. I'm Mitch.
See, I would 100. I don't have kids or anything like that, but 100% I would switch me and Chris around because he's very much like that. As soon as he gets away from his kids and his family, that is exactly what he's like.
It goes off the rails of it.
Just his wife just going, "Get back here now, you're not allowed to drink."
And you're the master of a master plan, like kind of Beanie is.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely do that way. So Chris can't defend himself, so he's definitely, I reckon, we'll make him Frank the Tank.
We'll make him Frank the Tank. Okay then, Andy, have you done recasting?
No, because this is one of these ones, there's too many people to recast. And what I would say about this film is a fraternity film they're all the same.
Yeah.
It's been done 1,000,001 times, so I cannot recast. I mean, if you want to go and watch another film with different cast, you go watch Animal House. If you want to go watch something else, you watch another film. It is impossible. This was impossible to recast. Yeah. Everybody worked for the characters they were.
Absolutely, because Will Ferrell's very much playing Will Ferrell. Vince Vaughn's very much playing Vince Vaughn, but Luke Wilson's kind of, I don't know, an empty
You could put
void.
anybody else in Luke Wilson. It wouldn't have elevated that at all.
I wouldn't change that at all. Exactly, I can't disagree. So I haven't gone for what films were mentioned. There was a couple mentioned, but there was not as obvious as it always is. So I've got my usual criteria. Dead Man Walking, a bit of a spoiler for this one. I knew Blue died. But when you think about it, the 89-year-old guy living the fraternity life, he was never going to last long. So he was.
I don't know. I thought he would have. He should have.
Maybe should have. I wonder if they'd have tried to make a sequel with him involved if he had survived.
It's the Ghost of Blue.
Ghost of Blue, because they would have had him in the end, didn't we? Could this have come out in 1995? Absolutely, this could have done. You'd have to recast the 90s comics.
Well, like there was a funny with Chantel when Vince Vaughn was like doing his first earmuffs thing, and she's like, "That phone, it's like an 80s phone." I was like, "No, that's a 2000s phone." And she's like, "I had a phone in 2000s and it wasn't that old." And I was like, "No, that's a proper, just he's got his pager because they still have pagers in America." And she was bamboozled. She thought it was like in the 80s.
It's such an old thing nowadays. So yeah, this is very much like there's nothing that dates this. The mobile phones is about it, but even then, like say they had the chunky mobile phones, and then yeah, a different cast, like Saturday Night Live from a previous generation, just cast all them in this.
Well, that's literally you're going to go into Animal House then, aren't you? Because the ones are not dead.
Yeah, whatever's in between Animal House and Old
Chris
School,
Farley and stuff like that. That's what you'd be.
Yeah, you'd be them. Who's in the wrong movie? Kind of tough, like you say. Everyone's fine. I guess just the character of Ellen Pompeo, her character, just seems to be separate from what else is. The film is going on is Old School, and then there's her sort of weird sort of rom-com thing happening with Mark. So just kind of take her out. She's in the wrong movie. And what happens next? I reckon Frank the Tank is dead within 6 months. Like he's living and working on college campus here.
Yep.
So he's done. He's dead in 6 months, and then the two of them just shut it down. Like, oh, we can't carry on now. We say Mitch is the godfather. Frank's actually the figurehead of this whole thing. He is the star, and I feel like Vince Vaughn would get bored of it eventually.
We've got another update via text from Chris. He says, I remembered Weensy, add him in from me, myself, and Irene.
We're doing texting. It's like working on the radio here. Text topics.
I know. Oh, you gotta love tech. This is why this is one take podcast. People don't believe us. This is one take.
Chris has disappeared and
we
may never come back. Okay, point 7 on the 10 point
here
podcast.
We go.
The tropes that need to die. Chris is not here. Do you have a trope handy? Because I have one. If you don't, so.
I'm fed up of college campus movies, but it's hard because it's a genre of film. So I don't know if that's a trope, but I've seen too many of them now. Like there's too many of them.
There's only so much you can do with them now. Like it's
okay, right. If I have to narrow it down, it's fraternity college campus movies, like make a new fraternity and stuff like that. Like,
look at all the wacky things we do in a fraternity, and
because we don't get that over in the UK. Like we don't get fraternities, so I'm fed up of seeing. Like I like this film, but I'm fed up of seeing fraternity movies because we never got to experience this shit.
Yeah, it's jealousy more than anything. My one, this might apply to you, Andy. You can obviously be the opposite. In films, people getting married and then immediately regretting getting married.
Oh, yeah, this happened all, didn't it? Yeah.
It's like, it happens all the time. It's like, surely it dawns on you beforehand that you don't want to get married. And then in this film, it literally just seems to be the whole aspect of he is now married. Like the next day, he used to be like, oh, I hate now being married. It's like, basically nothing has changed. It's like,
well, it's like when we were obviously doing a lot of wedding planning and stuff like that. Like Chantel was like looking at stuff. American weddings are nuts. They're like up there with like almost Asian weddings, which I didn't know. Like when you go to an American wedding, you basically have to guess how much the venue cost, how much the food costs, and then you have to pay your share of it. Like the bride and groom should, in theory, come out with profit from a wedding. So and I was just like there's people like, oh yeah, I normally do about £600 per person. It's like, what?
We didn't get that from me, Andy, at your wedding.
I was like we asked like for generally nothing, cards and that, and people gave us stuff which we were like super grateful for. But it's like I wasn't expecting my wedding to be paid for. But like I go on these wedding pages and they're just like, oh my god, this person only gave me £25. Their placement was 800. I should have at least got 1,000 from them. It's like, Jesus hell!
First of all, you're paying too much.
So maybe that's why like Americans are always like this, and they just regret it because it's, we didn't make profit in this wedding. I don't love you anymore.
Get rid. Just call it a loss and get on with your life. Yeah.
But maybe that's my only justification for that trope is like I did see it, and it is crazy. Like they're absolutely mental, and like I say, the Asian weddings are exactly the same. Yeah. It's like you've got to pay your way, you've got to make profit on it. Which actually does bring me on another high point. I forgot. I'm going to add in a high point. The what do you call it? The
bread maker.
Bread maker. The running gag of the bread maker. Because
I think I'm so used to that joke that it doesn't register as funny with me anymore. So it's great. Him bringing it the first opportunity after the wedding, and then the kid's birthday party. Open up. You've got to think, Frank.
It's got 3 speeds.
Why would you? Yeah, it's got 3 speeds. That's selling it to the kid. Oh, it's got 3 speeds. But why would Frank be like, oh, Max wants to open one of his presents. I've got him this one, with it being his own gift that he knows is a bread maker that the kid won't want. But then also to open it in front of Mitch, who he got it from. It's just a whole round terrible idea. But yeah, high point is definitely the bread maker getting passed around. Okay. On to point 8 on the podcast. Our nominations for the Table Podcast Awards. Chris is really going to miss it here, and of course now we get Chris to go first and we argue.
I don't normally, so you're going to have to
And
do it because I've not got many.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll go through what I've got. Best cameo. I've gone Todd Phillips because he plays that creepy guy in everything that he does now, and I like him showing up because he's like is he in a elevator in Hangover, I think.
Yes.
So yeah, he's a good, and that's an actual cameo. Like we dispute what is and what isn't cameos. That's a cameo. Best costume. This is why I wrote his name down earlier. Bishop Don Magic Juan. Snoop Dogg's buddy in the green costume at the gig. That is a belter with his.
Stand out.
With his pimp cup as well is amazing. So yeah, he stands out because everybody else like Snoop and the other guys are just casual, just hoodies and hats and all. He's full on lime green head to toe. Oh, we might have a guest on the podcast, maybe. Although I can't see him.
Guest
he's
star.
back.
Yay, he's back.
Fucking serious.
We've carried on the podcast. We're still recording because we're a live one take podcast. So carry on, Chris.
I know.
I don't. We've carried on, so I'll ask of you: have you recast us into the film?
Well, I did. Yeah, as was mentioned before, I'm Frank the Tank, and the Frank the Tank anger is burning inside me right now. I put Andy as Beanie. Like he has like a guy for everything, like Beanie does.
Ah, yeah. And I'm Luke Wilson.
Oh yeah, obviously.
That's exactly what we called it. Bruce had it a bit wrong, but we argued the case around.
Andy told me that was the correct way, so I went with that. So next, major point 7, major trope that needs to die, Chris. We need that.
Yeah, playing about with loaded guns.
Right, okay.
Right, yep, okay, good.
Right, we're on to nominations now. I'll run through a couple, but normally you go first, Chris, so why don't you run through your nominations?
Well, I put Best Actor is Vince Vaughn, Worst Actor Juliette Lewis, because I don't like her, Best Supporting Jeremy Piven, Biggest Bellend was Mark, Best Villain was Dean Pritchard, Best Death was Blue, Worst Plan is Tristan Summers.
We need to get Chris angry more often. He fucking rattles off. He's like,
podcast.
Before the laptop shuts down quick.
Oh, I knew something was going to happen because it's been pissing me off all night. My worst special effects was Windsy falling and then doing a somersault later on.
The somersault.
My best cameo was Sean William Scott. My best father figure was Beanie. Because he didn't like his kids. People.
That's good. Yeah, good one.
Yeah.
Best song, Sound of Silence. Best hair, The Pet.
No.
Well, I've you've been so quick on that, but I've been unable to argue, Chris. So you just finish your list and I'll go through mine afterwards.
Okay. Best hair was the pet Sean William Scott's Pet and Zoo guy.
Oh yeah.
Mullet.
And best product placement was KY Jelly.
Ah, there we go. Right, okay,
so that's why I thought he stole my fucking thing.
I did Todd Phillips as best cameo, Chris, and Andy was.
I did half him. He was really close to do it. But...
Right, so he's winning that one. You missed out on my Bishop Don Magic Juan costume being best costume. Best death. I thought Dean Pritchard. I'm happy to take Blue if you'd rather, Andy. But I went.
No, Dean Pritchard. That was epic.
Yeah, because also you get 2 for 1 with that.
Yeah.
Best set. I don't know if Chris mentioned one. The coffee shop or diner. Where he sits with Ellen Pompeo, because it's the same one as from Harry Met Sally. It's the same,
same
one.
Yeah, exactly the same one. Best song, Chris is wrong. Total Eclipse of the Heart by the Dan Band is.
I'll give you that, or Master of the Puppets.
Master of the Puppets. I think it has to.
But yeah, no, I love Dan Band, so I'm going Dan Band.
Yeah, I've got best soundtrack as a whole nomination. I don't know if we still do that. Best supporting. Did you say Jeremy Piven? Because he's best.
He said Piven. Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely best supporting. Best villain, Dean Pritchard, Jeremy Piven himself. Best villain, Mark. Danny John Jules. Did you have a nomination, Chris?
What did I put as? No, I didn't, because I'm very confused with what the Danny John Jules.
So Danny John Jules is most unexpected because he came up unexpectedly in 2 films. So I had John Locke from Lost. Because he is also uncredited. He's not actually in the credits. Terry O'Quinn being in the film.
Which was funny because I literally watched Resident Alien, the Alan Tudyk Alien show.
Right.
And he was literally in the last episode, and I went straight from that into this. I was like, fucking hell. It's Inception here.
There you go. So maybe John Locke, but Howard from Big Bang Theory before he's Howard in Big Bang Theory is quite a good unexpected. No, unexpected. This is unexpected, Chris. You didn't get...
I thought it was called Danny John Jules cameo.
No, because he doesn't cameo in Blade 3, does he? He's actually in
unexpected. You don't expect him. Surprise attack.
So are we going John Locke because of your?
I would say John Locke.
John Locke.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the worst physics apparently is a nomination we have. I'll go Winsy's flip on that, but worst CGI also. And that's me, I think. Andy, have we missed any?
No, I mean, Chris stole my product placement thing, which was the one and only category I was going to try and keep track of. Best inanimate object, I'm going for the bread maker, because it was a nice gag.
We'll take that. Yeah.
So I'm going for that. And maybe if we want to put some controversy in, worst physics is Weensy falling off with his penis, because that's going to kill somebody.
Yeah, he probably would be dead.
I like just sucked his insides straight down.
Or his penis has grown about 12 inches.
You win some, you lose some again. Okay, on to point 9, the moral of the story, what we thought the lesson we're supposed to learn from old school was. Chris, why don't you start us off while you're still here?
Yeah, you're never too old to have fun, Alan.
Yeah. What about you, Andy?
Don't get old.
Don't get old. There you go. I went a different route. I saw it from Cheesy's perspective, and I went, spite is a hell of a motivator. As in, he did all of this because he was bullied as a kid, and it was like spiteful towards these two guys. And the trouble that he was going like bribing kids in his college and all that to try and get these guys off campus. So yeah, I think spite is a hell of a motivator. Either way, I agree with what you guys were saying. Point 10. The 10-point rating, we rate the movie out of 10. Sean's not here to rate it himself. I'm assuming he'd give it about, otherwise it wasn't one of his top 10, was it? He said he had to add it on. He'd give it a high score, so he can't go first. I'll go first, just because. It's a movie that's near and dear to my heart, and I very much enjoy it. However, it's not as good as it once was. I don't know if I've worn out. It might have worn out its kind of funny bone a little bit with me. There are some bits where it's not hilarious for a period of time, and not especially interesting, and a lot of the storylines are a bit loose. But it has very much had an effect on me. I keep saying the bits and pieces from it. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 because there's very little wrong with old school. I very much enjoy my time. Chris, what have you got? Not a 7, apparently.
No, it's okay. I mean, it does, like you said, it's got a couple of really funny bits. Other bits are just, it drags on. I know it's like only an hour and a half film, but there's also something about Luke Wilson I just don't like. I just don't find him funny. He's not a leading guy. For me, it was Frank and Beanie were the two main ones for this film. But yeah, it's an average film for me. It's 5.
5 from Chris. I mean, oh my God, 2 points more than yours, Chris.
I know, fucking travesty.
Yeah,
well,
right.
Expect to be like upper half.
Well, it's upper half, it's 7. Right, okay, never mind. Andy, what's your score?
I'm with Chris. I'm just going to straight down 5. It's funny when it's funny. It's bang average when it's bang average. It drags a bit. There's better versions of this, like Animal House and stuff like that. So go watch them instead. But if you want an average film, watch this.
Yeah, I think comedies
really disjointed.
I guess it probably is. Yeah, comedies you have to judge slightly differently because they're the way they are, and funniness comes into it. And for me, I enjoyed this where it wasn't necessarily funny. A 6 out of 10 for old school, which is probably about right. Yeah. You guys both said 5, but I like it better than a 5. So 6 out of 10 for old school.
Oh shit, it's my pick, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Damn it! If he didn't come back, we'd have to pick for him as well.
I thought of that. Yeah, God, I'd probably had to skip to me. I think. Anyway, before we get on to Chris's pick, while he thinks about it, this is different because it's the wheel of Sean, but it's still the wheel that picked it. Can't we pick a theme that the wheel is drawing up?
What's
for
the wheel done? It's done old.
So it's an old school. Batman Begins and Beautiful Creatures are the 3 that the wheel has picked for. A very random collection of films, but
posh privileged cunts.
I was going to go Big Fancy Houses. Is what I was going to go.
Yeah, there's that. Okay.
Yeah, but either way,
it's the same thing. Yeah, the wording might be different. The meaning's there.
Maybe it's white privilege. Maybe that's the theme that the wheel is.
Yeah, it's actually.
Should be bad people have been wronged in the past. I think
vengeance.
Vengeance.
Yes.
Vengeance. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So yeah, there is themes that link the 3, and hopefully I bought Chris enough time because Chris's pick
I found it
next week. Right, Chris.
It's a film that it's a sequel to a film we done a wee while ago, which hasn't been figured.
Okay.
I'm just going to come out and say it. It's City Slickers 2, and I can't remember the actual name of it. It's The Curse of
Curly's Gold.
Yeah, Curly's Gold. City Slickers 2. My God, right? Okay.
What the heck?
Of all the films in all of history that we could do, you've got
it falls into my category.
It falls into your category, but however, we're now rocking 3 comedy run here.
Don't worry.
It's
not a comedy from me next, so you're all right. We can. You don't have to worry.
Shit. My next 2 are comedies.
Okay. The comedies. It's your theme comedies.
It's not actually because I had. Oh no, Clocks 2 was a comedy.
Yeah.
Cash with the Can's a bit of a comedy. Okay, yeah. So my
Unofficial theme.
Unofficial themes of comedy.
Chris is not going dark for Halloween this year, or maybe he is, and it's going to be a dark comedy. There we go. So, City Slickers 2 is the film next week. Find that if you can. You've probably got a VHS at the back of the cupboard somewhere on City Slickers 2. Lick that out, and we'll see you next time on the 10 Point Podcast.